If you are not using AI for Excel, you are sleeping on the power of what it can do. It is one of the biggest changes I have seen in the last year for AI. This video is all about AI and Excel. It's about Claude. It's about CoPilot. It's about what we can do that we couldn't do before. And I go farther than that. I'm going to talk about specific prompts and show you specific prompts and how I use them to save hours of work. And I'm also going to give you a sense of how we should think about these new emerging capabilities in AI and how they change our own calculations of what's worth doing for people versus what's worth doing for AI, and how much we should pay for AI, invest time in AI when it continues to gain capabilities like this. So, a lot to cover. Let's dive in first to what launched and why I'm doing this video now. Claude has launched Excel capabilities for the last couple weeks. It's extraordinary. It's really good. It got better with the launch this week of Sonnet 4.5. I was able to one-shot complex Excel analysis out of a screenshot for multiple currencies, like 4 or 5 different currencies this week with Sonnet 4.5. It's gotten really, really good. But people don't know about it because it's in Claude's Max plan, which is expensive. We're going to get to that in the ROI part and how you think about that. So just put a pin in that. For now, if you're not on the Max plan, this is still for you because, one, Claude is bringing those Excel files down. You can look for them to come down market soon. Two, CoPilot launched this week also, and agentic Excel builder, right? Like it can be in Excel, it can be your assistant, it can build Excel for you, can edit Excel for you. I played around with it. To me, it reads as about a number 2 compared to what Claude can do with a great prompt, but it's the tool you got if you're in Copilot, and it's fantastic and you shouldn't sleep on it. And so I think it's great. It's also another reason to talk about this. The larger story is clear. We had LLMs doing words for a long time, and now they do numbers. Now they do numbers. And that means that you need to think about ROI and value differently. And it also means you should assume that this video matters for you, this capability, the prompts I'm going to show matter for you, regardless of what plan you're in today, because the capabilities are coming to you. They're coming to you. In 3 months, everybody's going to have this. Maybe in a month, everybody's going to have this. And frankly, if it's in Copilot, most people have it now already. That is how quickly this is changing. So how do you think about the value of Excel work? I feel like it's very, very different from words. When we are prompting with words, primarily what we are doing is we have a thought and we are saving ourselves the hands-on keys time to write it all out. And whether you do that well or badly, that's the idea. Now, you can prompt badly and get malformed thoughts or thoughts that feel like AI slop that aren't really your thoughts, or you can prompt really well and get stuff that is your thoughts just written out really, really fast. It's an accelerator, right? That's fundamentally what words are. But it's different with Excel, and I think the leverage is in some ways higher because what you get with Excel is the leverage to compute numbers. And with Claude and with the new Copilot launch, that leverage is essentially production grade. It is not as good as a CFO that has been doing spreadsheets for 25 years. I don't want to overstate it. It is not as good as the person who has maintained the 20-sheet tab for 15 years in your office. No. But it is an extremely good professional assistant that can prepare dozens of different financial statements or models or attribution analyses or ROI calculations. We'll get into all of them. Like you'll see the prompts that I'm building. Like it can do all of the standard business spreadsheet stuff 30 to 40 times faster than a human in a better organized way. And I want to call out Claude in particular here. Claude is a good note taker. Claude is so obsessive about having a little tab that has all of your notes there. And I love that so much. And it's going to do that faster than anybody in the office, including the CFO. And so really, when you think about the ROI for these investments, is it worth it going to Claude Max now? I don't really think about it as, am I going to get the money back per se? I think about it as, am I going to get the time back? And do I need it now, or can I wait a month for it to come down to the right plan? There is no question I will get value back in terms of what it can do for me if I know how to prompt it. And that's exactly what we're doing here. Is we're going to talk about how you prompt it so you get the value. There's no question at all. The prompts you are able to build the revenue analysis, the board ready models, these are going to save dozens of hours for finance teams, right? They'll save dozens of hours for PM teams who are trying to build ROI models. Excel is extremely hard for humans to build because it's all predicated on the idea that you have to have control over every individual cell and know what it says and know how the formulas compute. And that is inherently a very high compute task for us. It goes in our brains. This is why I lose my hair. I had to do a 20-sheet Excel when I was a marketer back donkeys years ago. And like, the gray hair is real. You have to think of these as multiplied accelerators when it comes to Excel. So if they just accelerate linear production of words, already LLMs are amazing. But with Excel, they are giving you not just quick thoughts, they are giving you full models that you can use to do real work with. To me, that is actually more time leverage. It saves you another order of magnitude more time. So if I am trying to write a product requirements document, and I can get it done now in 20 minutes instead of 3 hours, that's great. If I am trying to build a set of board level analyses and I can get that done in 60 minutes instead of 8 days in a team of 3, it's another order of magnitude of improvement. It's a big deal. Now I do want to emphasize that the entire workflow shifts and moves the data collection burden to you early in the process. You still would have to collect the data for Excel regardless to get all of this work done. That doesn't change, right? Same data, got to get it. You're building an analysis. You need the same input numbers. They got to be right. But you have to get them up front now. And so for people who are used to saying, okay, I'm going to go to the next sheet, going to go get a cup of coffee, going to go pick this up off of Daryl's desk and then come back and look at it, that's different now, right? You got to get it all in advance. You got to make sure you have it all. Now you can give relatively messy inputs. Like I said, I gave a screenshot with numbers in multiple currencies, and I got, frankly, surprisingly good outputs from Sonnet. It was like one mistake, and I corrected it quickly, and that was it. I think we are sleeping on the that we get if we are willing to do just a little bit more work up front. So do the little bit of work up front, collect the data, and without further ado, let me show you 4 examples of prompts that I am building and using for AI in Excel and why I think they're so powerful. I actually built a bunch more of these. I think I have like 18 of them, and I'm putting them all together into a prompt pack, and they'll be in the post. But I want you to at least get a sense of the structure, because my goal is for you to understand how I put them together, and there's not magic to it. It's really about communicating intent. And so let's go look at our first prompt. Okay. This is actually a relatively short one. These are in ascending order of complexity. I thought I'd start you out easy. This is not multiple hundreds of lines. This is just a few dozen lines per step. Our goal is to get a monthly P&L from raw data. Let's say you have a CSV export from your accounting system. It's a little bit of a mess, but let's put it together. My recommendation is that you actually do these in pieces. And so you'll notice that these Excel prompts do come in pieces. They presume that you will get a deliverable at the end. If you notice at the end of this initial step, it is return the clean data in a new sheet called clean data. Just in case, for example, you run out of context window on one of the larger prompts, this allows you to continue your work, and it doesn't become one of those nightmares where like the thing runs out of context and it does what Claude at least does in a very frustrating way and just says, I can't do this. We're out of context. And then you lose like half an hour's work. It's designed to prevent that. So it's very simple. You declare your columns, and then you just declare your intent. Please create a clean data table, and then you start to define cleanliness, right? Dates must be formatted properly. Amounts must be formatted as currency. Remove duplicate transactions. This is an example of something where, like, if I knew what was in the data set, I would probably be much more declarative about what counts as a duplicate to avoid false positives. And so you can expand that, make it yours. Number 5, add a column for month. That's something that would be relevant for most people to be able to filter. And then flag rows with missing data. You can identify other steps in your data hygiene process. Most organizations will have a data hygiene process that they can go through that actually lays out all the steps. Like it's an SOP, it's a standard operating procedure. You can literally encode that as a prompt, right? It doesn't have to be a manual thing that I do every time I open up the sheet, because this is what I would have to do, right? I used to have to do this all manually. Then second step, new prompt, you use the sheet And now you start to do work against it. Now you basically take it and start to categorize it now that the data is clean. And so you're going to define categories. These would be up to you, right? I made them up, but you can define what you want them to be, right? This seems standard, but you can sort of adjust them. And then use the description. This is something only LLMs can do, right? This just was not possible before with rules-based categorization. I know I've written those sort of if-thens and they're nightmares. This is much, much easier. The examples are good. If you feel like you have some areas of concern where it's like, I don't know if this is correct or incorrect or a duplicate or not, you can include counterexamples. You can include tiebreakers or rules around ambiguity. And I love this at the end. Mark that it needs review and add a note explaining why it's ambiguous. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you don't want it to try and declare something ambiguous. You want to give it back to a human. All right, then we get to the monthly P&L. I don't want to spend too long on this. We have 3 others to go into. You create a new sheet. Again, you're declaring your rows. You're telling it what formula to use. One of the breakthroughs that Claude launched into the world, and CoPilot with Excel does this too, is we have fluency with formulas, finally. And you can format it with bold headers, subtotal rows. Can you tell I've been having fun since Claude launched this Excel thing? That was the beginning for me, right? I was like, finally it can do Excel. How much can it do? Well, you're starting to see how much it can do. And then we got, it's like Christmas for nerds. We got to have the CoPilot launch with Excel too. And so now we have multiple companies bearing down on this Excel problem space. It's going to be really exciting for folks that do any kind of work with spreadsheets in the next couple months. We get to budget variance. And so you can actually start to compute budget variance here. And you'll notice at each step, we're just saying, this is a new sheet. This is a new sheet. It will come back with a new sheet. And even if it runs out of context window, you're okay. And now you're doing one operation on it, right? Just add the columns. By the way, CoPilot is really, really good at this, like, just like do this one thing in the sheet. It lives in that embedded sheet, whereas Claude treats it like an object and manipulates it from the outside. And actually, Claude is still very, very good. Like I said, I think it's actually better overall in my experience than CoPilot with Excel, in the sense that it has more ability to follow complex, long-running prompts and get high-quality results. But if you want the inline edits, like the ability of like the Excel magical AI, that's just something Microsoft has a distribution advantage on, and they're just going to do it. And so this is an example of something where I sort of privately think CoPilot is going to do well here. And then you can validate it, right? You can add a validation section at the bottom, and you can make it prove itself and display it as a checklist. And then this is what you get out of it. And so I do more, right? I have a sales pipeline dashboard. There's other ones. But this should give you an idea, if you were an individual contributor, of what you can do with Excel. And you might think, well, Nate, there's a lot. But like I'm saying, like, how often do you touch monthly P&L? You have to touch it every single month. And let's say it takes you hours and hours a month, and now it takes you 5 to 15 minutes. That's going to be ROI that pays itself back really, really fast. Let's get to the next. Okay, we're going to go through this a little bit quicker now that you know the idea. I don't want you to get bored. This one is for a board. Let's say you're a founder, you're trying to put this together, you want your chief of staff to put this together, what have you. You need a comprehensive financial package. What does that look like? You can go through and have it just create a revenue analysis sheet with comprehensive revenue tracking. And you're defining that all here. You're declaring it. This is what you want. By the way, these are very standard. And that's good. You actually want standard if you're talking to the board. So this is a great thing. And it's just going to come back with this. Like, it's going to come back with the overall perspective. You're going to need to supply all the inputs for this. So you should add that in when you write this prompt. But then it's going to come back with a growth analysis, the calculated metrics, and all the rest of it. And now you have a separate step for cash runway. So you can go in and you can have inputs at the top for cash balance, for month, for burn rate. You get your projections, you get your alerts, your milestones, and you even get a visualization. And if you're wondering if it makes visualizations, yes, Claude in particular is very good at visualizations in a way that I am still surprised by. When I ask it to make a chart, it makes a good chart. And then you can actually give it this little instruction format for easy copy paste into board slide decks. Which is nice and touching. You can do all kinds of things people don't realize. I have told the AI where to bold, and it will just bold it in the right place, right? Like, there's all kinds of stuff you can do people don't realize that make it seem more professional. Step 3, you want to get to a key metrics dashboard. At this point, honestly, you're just kind of dunking on the competition because, like, you don't have to have this as a separate dashboard. It can be, but I wanted to show you what you could do, right? So you can go through and you can calculate these metrics in a new sheet. And you define how you talk about benchmarking here. You can define your metrics. Again, these are very standard metrics, so there's nothing too surprising, which is good because you actually want AI working off of standard metrics, and also because you want your board working off standard metrics. Department spend breakdown, very similar. You want to go piece by piece. Are you getting the idea? This may be hundreds of lines in total, but we're breaking it out so that it doesn't break the context window. And it's going to save you days of work. It is worth figuring out how to use it so that you can save the days of work. And there's a ton here, right? And now you're formatting it, right? Here's a board summary sheet. You talk about sort of what's in the overall report. You give it very specific formatting specs and export steps. And honestly, like this is very Claude specific, because Claude can work across PowerPoint and PDF and Excel within one prompt, whereas Microsoft Excel agent won't. So I wrote this for the more complicated use case, but you could obviously drop it out if you would like. Is there other stuff? Yes, we can. With the 13-week cash flow model is a totally different thing. You get the idea, right? It's a longer prompt. It's broken out in ways that the context window works for. It uses standard terminology, which is good for the LLM and the board, and it presumes that you can gather the inputs that you need. Let's do a third one. We're going to go up yet another level here. Let's say you want to build a 3-year business plan. Now, you might think, well, only founders need to do that. But honestly, everybody should build a business plan if they're doing anything at all related to a side gig. And everyone should be able to read one if you are in a business, because boy, does it shape your world, whether you like it or not. And so at least you should be able to understand this. And by the way, one of the things that's really interesting about AI, as a sidebar, is that the availability of material like this makes AI a phenomenal teaching tool. You can go into AI and say, you can go to Claude, ChatGPT, any AI, and say, please tell me why the 3-year business plan has the elements it does. And you can get a whole lesson. You just get a whole lesson on it. Anyway, we create an assumptions sheet, which serves as a source of truth. And so we start to do that first. We go through each of these. You'll notice we are getting very clear with our seasonal patterns. You will need to go through and sort of hand brush these over so that you have the right adjustments for your business, right? Similarly with hires, right? You want to sort of be able to hand adjust this to get to expenses, etc. Now, the good news is, let's say you are like, oh, Nate, I don't want to go through and touch every single line. Well, you don't have to. You can go in and you can copy this prompt, and then you can get all of the spreadsheet, the dirty CSV, the picture of the cocktail napkin where you have the data, and you can say, put A and B together in a smart way, right? Like, here's my prompt. Do not follow the prompt. Instead, fill in the prompt with this information. And the LLM can do it. It kind of doesn't matter. Any cutting edge AI will be able to do that. And you go through and you say, this is what I want, right? These are all of my assumptions. You go down to step 2, and now you're building a revenue model. It's a separate sheet, and you're going to go through, you're going to create the revenue model and stack the cohorts all the way through. Make sure that it understands how you want to build your business. And again, you'll need to adjust this for your business. We're assuming implicitly that there's almost a B2B format here, because that's just become the standard for a lot of these, the way we talk about business in the software world. If you're not an MRR business, don't use MRR, right? Use the metrics that make sense for you. And you go through and you can create the visualization, right? The point is to show you what you are capable of doing in these models. And then step 3, you get to expense models by department. This is another level deeper. You can see already you're another level deeper versus the exec ready board prompts. I don't want to bore you. This is a long prompt. The good news is I wrote it already for you. All you have to do is modify it. Super, super easy. As you go through, you can do that. You can do the headcount model. If you're a tiny startup, you don't need that. That is part of why I broke this up. It's all optional. You can do a P&L roll-up. Again, it's more complex than the board one, but it's good for a business plan. And you can do, finally, a cash flow statement. So there's a lot there. But that's good, right? Because at the end of the day, you actually get your entire business plan done. This is the kind of thing a bank needs or a venture capital firm needs to think about investing, right? It's much more in depth, but this kind of thing saves you hundreds of hours if you do it right. Let's look at one more. And I saved the best for last, guys. I saved the edits for last. Yes, I want to talk about the possibility of editing with Excel. That has been really challenging for models in the past, and I am so excited to share what I've worked on. Okay, it is really, really important when you're editing to be clear about what you want. And so This is going to presume certain kinds of mess. My goal here is to show you how to clean up as a set of principles so you can clean up your own mess with prompts that are forked from this, right? So for example, I have a messy data export from, and then you'll have to specify where it's from. This is the current state. You want to describe this as specifically as you can. So inconsistent formatting, duplicate entries, text and number fields, unclear column headers. And this is what I want. And then specifically, this is how you clean the data. You want to be as specific as you can here, and it should map back to current state. This is what categorization looks like if that matters to you when you're cleaning the data. So again, you're going to specify that as cleanly as you can. This is how you start to work against it. And then this is your quality checks. The output is a clean data set with a summary dashboard showing total, items by category, monthly trends, and items required review. Ensure all formulas are error-free and totals reconciles to source data. You can actually do more than this in validation. If you get paranoid, you can make it produce a separate document showing how it did all the work. And so it can go through and sort of explain to you how it did it as a way of auditing. What would you change with your mess? That is my question for you. Would you change the data has issues like, so it's more specific? Would you maybe, for example, say 80% of our issues are inconsistent formatting, and these are the 6 ways that we see it? Those are all ways to give the LLM more clarity. Basically, think of this as the LLM's briefing before going into the spreadsheet, and you want it to be as comprehensive as you can so the LLM gets no surprises and doesn't hit a point of ambiguity. And so if you think it's going to hit a point where something might have inconsistent formatting or a mixed date format, and there might be 2 correct answers based on your prompt is not clear enough. And that is one of the reasons why edits fail. And I've come through and I've done some other edits, like you can get the fix the broken formulas and all of that. These are complex prompts, and these ones, because they're edits, are going to require another level of involvement from you because everyone's spreadsheet is broken in its own special way. And so you will have to go in and talk about how your spreadsheet is especially broken to get this stuff fixed. But this is really, as far as I know, the first real effort anyone has made to make AI do edits and not just create from scratch. It is harder because they're trained to create from scratch. That's how reinforcement learning works. It is still worth it to figure out the edit piece because if you can get a cleaner version of your spreadsheet, if you can fix your spreadsheets, again, dozens of hours saved. It's a huge time savings. Okay, you have been patient enough to stare at 4 different kinds of prompts. You have looked through IC level prompts, you've looked through executive ready board meeting prompts, you've looked through business plan prompts, you've looked through how to edit with Excel, which is net new. I hope what you walk away from is realizing that you have the ability in your pocket now to save hundreds of hours on complex business computation. To me, what has launched in the last 2 weeks has the same leverage and power for numbers as the launch of the Pocket Calculator. That's how big a deal it is. And we're sleeping on it because most people either don't have the Claude Max plan, haven't really sat down and thought about prompting the CoPilot AI for Excel, or they just don't have the time to come up with these complicated prompts, and they've always done it this way, and so they're just always going to do it. Let me challenge you. It is worth it to go a little bit differently, to try a new prompt, to adjust one of my prompts, if it saves you that much time. If it saves you a dozen hours this month, the Claude Max plan is probably worth the money because you're going to spend that amount of time, right? Like your time has some value to it. And so I would love it if you guys would share ways you are using Excel, and if you guys would talk specifically about what that speed up feels like when you're using it well versus the speed up you get from using AI for words. Because I continue to come back to this idea that AI for words was huge. It was like a 10 or 100x speed up. But the potential with Excel is 1,000x because of how complex these numeric structures are. They're not lists of numbers. They're complicated, multi-sheet, hundreds of formula, multicellular structure messes. And now we can finally deal with them. So that's why I'm excited for AI for Excel. This has been, I really think this has been the biggest week for numbers, for leveraging numbers and going farther in business since the personal calculator. Like, it's huge. Maybe since the original Excel. The original Excel was pretty cool. Maybe we'll give them credit there, but it's a big deal. So have fun. Go dig into Excel. As you can tell, I'm an Excel nerd. And so I hope you enjoyed this one. Share it with someone who loves Excel.